I'm not a brand strategist and I'm not a brand designer. Even though I have those skills and I am perfectly capable, it's just not something that I find joy in for myself. Because as web designers, we don't also have to be brand designers. We don't also have to be copywriters. We can if those are things that you like doing. Otherwise, there's other ways to provide that service for people or to deal with those aspects that are tied into what we do. So web design is my thing. That's what I chose to specialize in. That's the creative work that I enjoy most. That said, brand strategy still comes into play while I set up the web design because I'm still considering a lot of those types of details. Whether I'm actually designing the entire brand or not isn't necessarily relevant. I still keep those design principles and strategies in mind while I work on the website. And today I want to talk about why this is still the backbone of my web design service, even though I'm not offering a full brand package. And then at the end, I'll share somebody that knows a lot more than me and actually teaches it so that if you choose to go deeper on this, you have a resource for that because it ain't me. But before I dive into any of that, if we haven't met before, my name is Katelyn. I run Launch the Damn Thing. I'm a Squarespace designer and educator. But prior to that, I was a graphic designer. I was in the print production industry for most of my career until I pivoted, went full-time freelance in 2020, and here we are. As a quick background on me, I studied design in college, but fun fact, I don't actually have my degree. I got really close. I'm actually, as of 10 plus years ago, I was 2 or 3 classes away from graduating, which there's a whole story to that, maybe some other time. So brand strategy was a part of that. I did learn conceptual design, design elements, design principles, all of those things in college. So I do have the foundation for that. But while I am capable of it, it's not my joy. I don't want to do those things. Like I don't enjoy it so much that I would offer it as a standalone service. It's always been tied to a website project since I've been freelancing because web design is the lane that I chose. And what I do offer is actually just brand styling. And I didn't have words for that until I met Kadie Smith of Dropcap Design. And I really like how she phrases this as just that the brand styling is basically a curation of resources that the brand can use. That might be sourcing fonts, stock photos, adjusting or setting the color palette, and maybe a typeset logo, something that you can do either in the web builder that you're using, Squarespace or Show It, or in something like Canva or Affinity, and then exporting it and putting that into the web builder. So it's very basic, but even then I'm still applying those original design principles, design elements, those strategies, color psychologies, and all of these things so that the end result matches the goals, the vibe that the client is aiming for. So within that, I'm thinking hard about the why, not just the what. I want to know, why do they like these colors? Why do they want these colors? Why do they want their client to feel a specific way? What will trigger that feeling? What type of imagery, what types of fonts will help evoke that feeling? How can I create that visual, almost physical experience in a virtual environment, right? Those are all things that I'm considering when I make these choices for the web design projects. So that's a little bit of a background on what I'm leaning on as I'm building this out for my clients. As an example, I had a client come to me once with a monochrome palette of different tints and shades of fuchsia, very bright, vibrant. It's a pretty color. She had a matching brand photography with her in those colors. The problem was that the color felt, for lack of a better word, loud. It felt too vibrant. It felt too pushy. It felt too high energy. So what we ended up doing was giving it a little bit of harmony and complexity. The effort that we made there softened everything, made it more friendly, made it more approachable feeling, and brought in an element of luxury feeling so that we could bring in stock photography that had gold accents in it and stuff like that. So it was still keeping her original pink theme, but just toning it down and making it more topic appropriate for the industry that she was in. And I say all that to say that the reason we did that is because she just came to me telling me, this is what I've been using on my DIY website. I like this color. And I was thinking, okay, you are allowed to like this color, but also think about how your clients would like that color, how they would feel about that color. If you created a front lobby for a physical space that your clients would walk into and it was mostly that color, how would they feel in that room? And that's when she took a step back and was like, actually, that's probably not the feeling that I want them to have. So then we tried to figure out how we could keep the color that she loved, but tone it down and keep it matched for her audience. So we had to think about, what does fuchsia communicate versus what her service-based businesses needed to say. Those two things weren't in alignment with the original color palette, but when we changed them, they were much more aligned. That's not to say that she'd keep that color palette forever. Businesses evolve, things change, but at least she had a better, more appropriate starting point at the time. So what we changed was we softened the fuchsia. It became dustier, way less aggressive, way less high, vibrant energy. We added that soft black to ground it because we needed dark text in a lot of these sections on the website, and I didn't want to write them in purple. So we added a soft black. We also added that gold for warmth and subtle luxury, and the result was a much more appropriate and elevated brand style, adjusted from her original. So the point, without that foundation, I'd have built that site with fuchsias everywhere, and I think her audience would have been repelled. So had I not known what I knew when I did the brand styling for her, we could have built that entire website. We would have never really figured out potentially why it felt off the whole time. So if you've ever found yourself in a situation where you were building something out and you were like, something isn't right, but I don't know what that something is, then I'm talking to you. Because as I was going through college and learning these things, I had those experiences myself in my own college projects, which is trying to figure out, why doesn't it feel right? So let's talk about some of those things. The first thing is color psychology. It's one of my favorite topics, but basically color palette psychology for the design world is focusing on what the color is actually communicating to people. And it's not woo, that's studyable information. So there's science-backed reasoning for why, for example, purple stands for loyalty, red is usually passion or aggression, and yellow is energy and happiness. There's a reason my colors are associated with feelings. So fuchsia was a little feeling like, look at me. That wasn't the vibe, right? So the question I ask is, what does this site need to make someone feel in the first 3 seconds? That's not a long time period, right? We're trying to evoke a feeling in a very short amount of time before they bail, right? So that's one part. And we put a lot of thought into choosing those colors and trying to get those right. They also need to have contrast with each other, harmony, and all of these other things. Then the second thing is typography as a personality. And I actually have an older video on a lot of this stuff. I'll link somewhere above, but fonts have a vibe. It's kind of editorial. It can be elegant. It can be chunky or rounded, geometric and modern. Picking fonts is kind of like casting actors on your website. Not just, are they good? Do they work? But more like, do they fit their story? And that's something that I've learned through practice. All the fonts typically have a vibe. So you're looking for the font that has the right vibe. And sometimes that takes a while. This is not a quick pick typically. Then there's also heading fonts, because those set the personality, because that's the biggest fonts that you'll have on the website. So they're the most prominent, and the body font hopefully complements that and supports it, but doesn't take away from it. You don't want both of them to have too much personality. Just one of them has to have personality. Otherwise it creates tension, and you don't want tension. So typography as personality, that's the second thing. The third thing is having the logo in context. So a logo doesn't exist in a vacuum, as we all know, and it lives on the site, but it also lives in 1,000 other places. In the Facebook profile picture and the Instagram stories, you put it on your email signature maybe, and in your newsletters, and if you have printed products on those too, like it can be everywhere. So designing for the whole ecosystem and not just the asset just to give them something is something that I try to really focus on. And coming from a print background, I'm also really cognizant of how that would be printed or embroidered on something and what colors are being used in the logo so that it's less expensive to produce in printed or embroidered mediums because I know what those are like too. So there's a lot to consider there. Simpler is generally better. So 2 to 3 colors max. A few notes to hit here as we recap some of this. This is brand styling with intention. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing brand strategy as a whole. I'm not a brand strategist. Again, I'm not a brand designer either. I would prefer to leave that to people like Kadie Smith. I don't go nearly as deep. I know I've spoken with Kadie about her process. She has an 85-question questionnaire that she sends her clients as part of the discovery process for these projects. Mine is nowhere near that long. I might have an 85-question questionnaire, but it's for the entire website, including just a small part for the brand styling stuff. So it doesn't go anywhere near as deep because that's just not where I am focusing my effort for the project. I'm just doing the brand styling, but that's okay. So on a deeper level, if we talk about the gap here, the story, the positioning, the archetypes, the full brand identity strategy behind the design decisions that are made, behind the research that's involved in figuring out what colors are needed, what brand fonts are needed, what logo is going to work best for this, what's the story, what's the strategy behind all of that. That's the thing that I'm not doing with my own clients. I choose not to because if they need that level of service, I would prefer to send them to somebody like Kadie. And that has incredible value. I'm not saying that it doesn't. It absolutely 1000% does. It's just not value I personally want to provide myself. It has a skill set of its own, and I don't want to half-ass it either. I don't want to do it halfway. So if this is you and you're like, okay, I understand the gap here and kind of interested in filling it or wanting to DIY it for yourself, like just do your own branding, you've got a couple of options and Kadie is your girl for both. DropCap Design has 2 courses, and yes, I am an affiliate, but I also have the brand edit for myself. First, before I dive into any of that, Kadie is a professional. She has been doing this for 12 plus years. She has an agency called DropCap Design, and they have designed 200 plus brands for their clients. So she's not just talented, she actually knows what she's talking about. And also, she's a fabulous teacher. Her students, for one of her courses in particular, is not even targeted to designers. It can be anyone that learns how to DIY their own brand. I don't know if I can convey to you how difficult that is to teach someone who doesn't have design instincts to design their own brand, but that is kind of incredible. So the fact that she has successful students that go through her program, learn how to DIY their own brand when they're not a designer inherently, like a scientist or something, a completely different industry, that's impressive. Which is why I don't mind sharing her content and why I have it myself. Anyway, she's a genuinely good teacher. So if you're wanting to fill the gap, I would start there. Let's just talk about the 2 things that are available for your back pocket, we'll just say. So the first thing is the brand edit. It is for anyone building or refining their own brand identity, wanting to DIY it for themselves. And like I said, this is for designers. It's also for non-designers, non-creatives, other industries, if you just need an affordable way to get branding for your business and do it properly. Side note there. So her students, creative and not, finish with brands they're actually proud of, but still spend way less money than hiring a pro to do it for them, like Kadie. So that's the brand edit. The other bucket is the brand business, and that is specifically for designers who want to learn how to do branding the way that Kadie does and offer it to their clients, which is more about the business aspect of how this works for someone else. Again, the brand edit is for internal DIY branding. The brand business is more about refining and designing and handling this process with clients, so externally doing it for other people. So this is the methodology, the client processes, the pricing, the creative direction, and conversations that you have with the clients. So for anyone doing brand styling decisions and wanting real strategy and to charge higher rates, this is probably the right fit for you. The only reason I'm talking about any of this is because there's a founder sale coming up. It ends on May 2nd, and this is the lowest that both courses will ever be. So the prices are going up, but for right now, they're discounted. Kadie's always had very competitive pricing in general anyway. So this is the time. If you're waiting, you didn't know who to ask for, didn't know who to look for, didn't know who to learn from on this topic, hands down, she's your girl. She's who I recommend wholeheartedly. So I'll put the links below. Again, yes, I am an affiliate, but I also have the brand edit for myself. And I have invited her into my community to teach because I trust her expertise. She's a fantastic teacher. She's really easy to speak to. My students love her just as a free workshop. And if you want to catch those to get a feel of her teaching style, I'll also put those links below, but they're in my community.launchthedamnthing.com. So you can go take a look for yourself. They're in the free events section. So yes, while I am an affiliate, I would tell you about her regardless. That's totally not the point. To wrap up, you don't have to be a brand designer or to become a brand strategist. This is not a requirement to be a web designer by any stretch of the imagination, but you do need to know enough to make smart decisions for the user interface, for sales strategy, for conversion strategy, and stuff like that. Even though they're not directly related, they do definitely support each other very well. So if you're not happy with the designs that you're making, you feel like they could be better, but you're not sure what to change or how to get better, maybe the missing piece that you haven't found yet is knowing these strategies that are usually attributed to brand design, but also carry over into web design as well. And if you wanted to learn those things to apply them to web design specifically, it might actually really be helpful for you. And as an aside too, it might also be helpful to pick up an extra skill in the meantime so that you can end up providing it one way or the other. And you can charge for it. That's always a perk as well. So the fuchsia client, she didn't need a whole brand strategist. We just needed brand styling. She just needed a web designer who knew enough to course correct before we started building the website. But there are projects where the brand is the whole problem. And I have worked on those too. And that's when my backstory, my skill set, my background came in handy so that I could whip up something and actually add a brand package to the website where we could tackle that problem before we built the website. Otherwise, the website would have been pretty shitty, to be honest. And no amount of beautiful web design will fix a bad brand, an unstrategic brand, ugly brand, or a brand that's misaligned with the function and intention and goals of the website, right? If those two things are misaligned, then neither one of them are going to work on their own. So know the difference. Know your lane. That's all I'm saying. And who to call when you're outside of it and you don't want to provide those things for yourself. Have that person that you can send your clients to that's like, hey, this person is really good at it. Let's do that first and then we can build the website out after, if that's what you're wanting to do. But if you want to learn it for yourself, these are the options that I would highly recommend. She's really good at what she does, and I wouldn't be here talking about it if that wasn't the case. So while you decide which route you're going to take, totally up to you. I'm going to put these videos somewhere around for you to dive in a little bit further into brand personality. I've got a couple on that topic, so you can dive into that and then circle back to this one or to Kadie if you want to dive in even further. That's all I have for you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.